Okay, hello, hello. All the ads should be over now, at least for a while until the auto ads pop back in. We are back to doing editing on the codecs. And we had gotten through about 9 actual content pages, I believe, last time. I still need to hit things like the chapter heads and stuff, but I'll do those later because not my strongest suit. I don't have the same sort of mental voice as the people who write for Sinclair himself, which is usually the voice of those chapter intros. Okay, so I think we had pretty much done all of Vivit's edits, if I'm not mistaken. Like, we need to pad this out just a little bit to make it look nicer, but it is within reason. And then here, I think we just drop the ore. To make it look nicer. And she fits pretty well on this page. So here I basically just need to add out, 4 lines or so. And we can do that best by sort of inserting a little bit of filler into these paragraphs that are already almost a line. So she travels the world, offering her services as a military commander against fiendish incursions. Pure evil. Any fiend or allied to the unholy. Hey, Closet Prophet. What are we working on? We are working on the Sinclair's Codex. Thank you for the follow, Closet Prophet. So we're working on Sinclair's Codex. This is not the final book. Oh, thank you for the follow, Sapphire. This is not the final product by any means. This is a content pack, a thick content pack, but a content pack that's basically the combined part of a Venn diagram of has art and has a stat block. So there are characters that either don't have art or don't have just like a DLC. More like the early access, I guess, is the way to put it. It's not the whole thing, but it is a decent chunk. So this is what I was asked to work on and we spent several streams putting in information here. So the first couple of pages, like all this stuff in red is subject to change because it's from like the coda or from the almanac. But it's basically to like it's stuff I can't change until this is almost done. But then we've got our actual content, and we have that starts on page 4, and we go all the way down here to the bottom, which is on page 93. So we have 89 pages, a few of which are chapter headers. So say about like mid 80s of pages. What the thing at the bottom? That is Jabba with tentacles. That is Skirm, King of the Slums. He is a unique Otyug or Otyug or however you want to say it. The garbage monsters. He's a unique one. So yeah, the Codex is an NPC book. And there's one of my favorites that I didn't write there. That's Maritosk of the Thousand Teeth. And I got to work on some of the mechanics for Maritosk, the whole thing with lair hazards, which was really fun. But yeah, we'll be going through all these again eventually. I'm trying to work my way. Change his name to Oscar the Grumpy. Not my work, not my place to change the name. But I think I remember who wrote him. If not, I can go back to the original file and look it up, and I'll pass along your suggestion. That he looks like an Oscar. But yeah, so there's a few chapter headers like this. So out of that, there's still like 80 something pages of content in this pack. Unfazed. This probably be dash unfazed. No, unfazed is a word. Sometimes spell check is just stupid. Okay, so let's see. Right now I'm just working on making Vivit's first page here fit a little bit better by introducing filler text, basically. So like paragraphs like this one that are already almost going to go to a new line, I just add a little bit so that this gets a little closer to the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to look better than it does currently. The big gap at the bottom's a little bleh. It's acceptable, but I'd prefer to make it better. So we've already done the data entry for the most part. We're on to editing and fine tuning. So I'm so bad at filler text. I hated writing papers in school because my 5-page paper would be like 1 page. Conciseness is good. There's a character I'm going to have to shorten a little bit later. You might have seen the red text earlier. It says cull. Yeah, it needs culling. Like his art doesn't fit anywhere because he's got too much text. So like there's a little bit of that, but for the most part I'm adding on or things fit pretty well. So again, very few of these things I wrote. There are a couple of characters in here that I wrote as a freelancer / contractor, but for the most part this is other people's work, so I'm trying to fuck with their work as little as possible. I'm sort of the last hand that touches them. So I try not to mess with them too much. I like to try and preserve people's intentions and their designs when possible. Create recurring character in your story in a campaign with a recurring villain. It would be natural for Vivid to aid the party at numerous key moments, as well as in the final confrontation. They should be mindful of not letting her seize the spotlight. She may be a savior, but he isn't the star of the story. That gives us another line, which brings us just a little bit closer down here. Against the BBG, you should have it show up and deal the final blow. I mean, if that's what really fits for your story, like, sure. Like, MacGuffin characters are a thing, but like generally speaking, it's better for you to let the players do the cool thing. There's actually I think it's for I can't remember his name, but there was the guy, one of the people that designed the original Deus Ex was like, if there's a cool thing to do, don't have an NPC do the cool thing. Have the player do the cool thing. Don't do it in a and like don't even have like the player character do the cool thing in a cutscene. Like let them control it, and that's a good through line, I think, for other kinds of like for TTRPGs and stuff too. There's a time and a place for badass NPCs and them doing cool shit. Don't get me wrong. But it is best experience to have the players be badass and do cool shit. Especially if they really hate the BBEG. Like, there's a lot of catharsis in being the one to stop them. So, save your first wood. Have a PCs get a letter that says an NPC killed the BBG off camera. Not necessarily the most satisfactory outcome, but like there are ways you can do that and have it still be good. It's just you got to be real particular. You got to know your party, and you need to have something that comes in and regrants that catharsis in some way. It can be a switcheroo. It can be a bait and switch. Like, yes, this person killed the BBEG off camera, but really they didn't. Or there's bigger, badder BBEG actually, and the signs have been there the whole time, or something like that. Or the BBEG was quote unquote killed by Vivid, but in reality, they possessed Vivid, and yes, their body is dead, but now they are Vivid, and Vivid's the bad guy, because she's possessed, or something like that. Like, there are ways to do that sort of thing and still have it be good, but like there's no real absolute in this is good, this is bad, because there's usually a way you can twist it to be a still good in a story. But like general rule of thumb is like, don't do that. Like, don't just rip all catharsis and interest away from your players. Earning cycles. The came back changed, broken, and ashamed. The title and promotion offered. She left her home to direct her training, dedicating her life to mastering the art of slaying evil creatures. I'm gonna put in unholy for the fuck of it. So like we're within a line now. That's probably good enough. All right. Because like, especially when you can't see the blue box, it doesn't look as nearly as off kilter. Okay, so that's Vivid. Now it's time for Wild Eye. Conrossi is not capitalized. Wild Eye is because it's their name. I once had to rewrite my BBG because the PC started to hate a random NPC more, so I just made the NPC the BBG. I've never gone quite that far, but I have made NPCs significantly more important than they were supposed to be because of how the party treated them. I think that happens to everybody, though. Like, everybody has their, oh, this random NPC suddenly became important. I think my most memorable instance of which is Dirk the Serving Boy. So Dirk the Serving Boy was a not just like, oh, he wasn't important. He was literally randomly generated. I rolled on a table of like interesting events to happen at a tavern, and it was one of the server falls in love at first sight with one of the PCs. And so we had Dirk the Serving Boy. He was a young man that fell in love with one of the PCs, the fighter. And long story short, the party had a car in a fantasy setting. It was Magitech. But he hid in the trunk and followed them around, and they couldn't take him back. Improv a random NPC. I just made him up on the spot, and the PCs thought it was just him being shady. Yeah, that happens. So Dirk, they couldn't take him back because they were on a very important mission and had to keep moving forward, right? So they're like, okay, we'll protect you until we get somewhere where we can dump you off and you'll be safe. And I swear, like, I was like, okay, this kid's stupid, so he's going to do stupid things. I have never rolled better in my life than I did trying to kill him. And I don't mean like as in like, oh yeah, my other NPCs did real good at killing him. No, he was like a level 0 nobody NPC in Pathfinder First Edition. He was just supposed to fail and die. I've never rolled so many 20s, and this little serving boy somehow helped to stop a gang of thieves that were like 4 levels higher and much more skilled and dangerous than him. So they decided to keep him and start training him. And he eventually became a very notable and powerful NPC in the game. And eventually did end up wooing the player character, and they got married like 2 or 3 years in game time, I think. Later. It was the most absurd, just out of my ass NPC that ever happened because of dice rolls. Okay, so let's see. We've actually got a very good fit on Wild Eye here. We just need a sidebar and a little bit of cleaning, probably. Some people hate dice rolls, but they can cause hilarious situations. Absolutely. Like, I love rolling dice for things. Like, even when it's just something that could be a decision, I'll still usually roll a die, if only for the vibe. Like, or to cure my inability to make indecisiveness. That's the word. The days in the circle. I think, yeah, it's not the circle being a proper noun, so that's lowercase. Cursebreaker It's not a proper noun here because I don't think. Yeah, it's a. I said this is titles. Are titles capitalized? I forget. Are titles and ranks capitalized? Okay, so you use it when preceding a name. So, like, if you said Cursebreaker Wild Eye, it would be capital. But you don't just say Cursebreaker in capital. So, like, Sergeant Wild Eye, Sergeant's capitalized, but Wild Eye is a sergeant. Sergeant's not capitalized. That sort of thing. Right. Themed Circle of the Green. Here it is a proper noun. It is capitalized, but the circle is referential and should not be capital, I believe. So I'll use this time to bring up something I brought up many times during these streams, but since there's different people here listening, probably, there's a thing that everybody does, pretty much. They're called impulse capitals, where because something is important, you capitalize it. Keep an eye out for those. Everybody does it, so like I'm not saying don't do that. I mean, good luck not doing it. But like here, circle is very much an impulse capital, if not just a mistaken usage of nouns. Or assumption that it's a proper noun when shortened. But like corruption here is not a proper noun. Circle here is not a proper noun. They are referential titles. So like Circle of the Green is a phrased proper noun, but the circle in reference to it is not a proper noun. It is just a noun. But especially in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we tend to do impulse capitals even more, because there are some things that are important and we have to capitalize, like feat names and action names. Things that have a mechanical requirement, or not requirement, but it's a mechanical reference. So they're capitalized. But that it only applies, I think, specifically to like the names of actions and feat names, and basically nothing else. Magic is italicized specifically, but not all items. Non-magical items are not italicized. So there is a little bit of a messiness to it. Let's see here, like Aeon was capitalized because yeah, it's important. He's an Aeon, but it's not he's not from Eos. Like you would capitalize Aeon if it was just like, we should simplify it to capitalize all the first letters of words. But then it's just as bad as having all words are lowercase. Like so there's One of the things I think is interesting is that there are a variety of quote unquote style guides all across literature. Pathfinder has their own style guide. Effectively, that's like what I'm talking about when we say we capitalize these things, we bold these things, we italicize these things. That's a style guide. It refers to the way things are written. It dictates whether or not you use Oxford commas, different formatting things. And they are all different all over. No, I'll fix it. But they're different all over the place. From how you're expected to do stuff for like use the APA style guide. See, I don't know which ones are which actually. I know during a stream, Paizo said which like popular common one that theirs is based off of. I just can't remember because that was like a year ago or something. But yeah, they all have a tendency to be derived from like bigger ones. But yeah, you've got like the ones you're taught to use in school. Effectively, they're not. You don't usually get told that they're a style guide. They just tell you this is how you write, and you must write this way, otherwise you are wrong, and you're going to burn in hell. Basically, the very ardent English teachers of America, threatening eternal damnation. Which is just a joke. Ironically, I have had more weirdly hyper-religious math teachers than English teachers, in my personal experience. But I just thought it was funny. Okay, so we do need to peel back a single line here, which will be easy because we just make our boy a little smaller. And voila. All right, so now we need to think of a sidebar for him. I'm gonna come up here and just steal this one so I don't have to do the formatting manually. Curse breaking curses. When I was in school, English classes used MLA and science classes used APA. See, they never explained that shit to us, or at least not in my school. They just said, this is how you do it, and you did it, or you got docked points on your stuff. Usually, like in science class, they didn't care as long as the answer was right and it made sense. But I never went to college or anything, so I don't know if that's what you're referring to as college, as like a school. I only went to high school. I could not afford to go to college, either in time or money. So I'm mostly self-taught on things I know how to do. Ding dong, the aeon's dead. So like the cruel irony is that I'm not actually the best at grammar and things, yet I do a lot of editing. I do a lot of looking stuff up when I'm not sure. Self-taught is a valuable skill, shows you can learn independently. Didn't have much of a choice, but yeah, I've been doing that for a long time, like since I was a kid. I was reading a little earlier than peers. If my mom's not just doing that thing where she or where moms go like, "Oh yeah, you were exceptional even earlier on." But I do know that I was reading more and higher grade stuff, at least in about second to third grade. Because they had that sticker system where it's less just like different colors of sticker regarded to like different difficulties of reading, and they were like, "You're not supposed to read more than one grade ahead." And I was like, "But I've already read all of these, and I want to read those." Because I really liked Goosebumps, um, and uh, and fantasy novels. So I read a lot when I was younger. Uh, and I liked science a lot, even though I ended up not being like exceptional at it at all. Um, I think I had slightly above average ideas, but I wasn't that good at the math side of it, and that's kind of important for science is the math side. I didn't get decent at math until after I was out of high school, and I found a reason to like math, which was TTRPGs. And so I taught myself to be better at math. So I now have a passing skill in mathematics. Um, the art of passing skill. Um, Let me give him a read over right quick. Orndy. So, took the math something. Hello, bot. Banhammer. Uh, let's talk about this. Um, while Wild Eye is a somewhat under representation of a druid with the curse breaker archetype. Where's I'm not they also have a spell generally unique to them. Uh unique to them. Wild Eye might be willing to teach other final casters their radiant Radiant growth spell as a reward for their help or as a means to give them an edge when wild eye cannot be there themselves. Let me just reference this down there. If wild eye actively helps a learn the spell. They get a +2 circumstance bonus to their check to do so. To their check. There we go. That's wild eye. There is going to be a point where I also come through and I check all the numbers and stuff. But that'll be a sort of on a final quality pass. Because I've got to do a little bit more of a deep dive on some of these. And it doesn't do to hang myself up now on things that might be correct already. Whereas there are some where I absolutely know I've got to mess around and add or tweak things. If I remember correctly, he fit pretty well too. Yep, and he's already got a sidebar. So just some basic cleaning if needed. Can I add this to learn katana? It's a word. Ronin is also a word. D. Badass modular Ronin samurai. Or automaton Ronin samurai. Overall flow is good. Oh, yep, just learn spelling. Customizable. Oh, I just remembered by looking at that I forgot something up here. These lines should not intersect with the artwork. Easy way to do that is do text here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, much better. Okay, so Daichi's pretty much done already. Hello, Yukikami. How are you doing today? Welcome in. We are working on cleaning up the current pack for the codex. Uh, um, I'm doing good. So we're doing editing right now, basically. I see Pathfinder. I have to check. Yeah. So this is a part of Sinclair's library, Sinclair's codex. This is not representative of the final version of the codex. This is a content pack that's got approximately 80-ish, like 84, 85 pages of content. Some of which needs editing. Either additions or subtractions. Yeah, a lot of it's pretty much done as it is. I'm going through, I'm doing editing, I'm doing additions, like if it needs a sidebar or something. Some of the stat blocks are incomplete, things like that. Some editing needs to be done. It's very good looking. The artists that they hired to do the artwork for Sinclair's library was really are all really talented. So this is basically a cross reference of things that have both of NPCs that have both a stat block and artwork is what's in this package. There are characters that don't have a stat block. There are characters that don't have artwork. There, uh, so those are not making an appearance here. While things get sorted out, but I wanted to do the best I could to try and make sure that everyone's work that we can right now gets seen, because a lot of people put a lot of work into their NPCs and previously in their work to the almanac, and I don't think that it's good that it just sits in the background and doesn't get seen. This is one of the characters I wrote, Alfred. He's an ogre. This is the other character that I wrote, is Kuzan. I was based on a character I played. Maritosk of the Thousand Thief is one of my favorites in this book, because I like horrific monsters. And I got to work on the system for lair hazards, which are shown here. And then we got Mugen and Skirm, and those are the last two. But we are way up here, significantly closer to the top, working on Daichi, which Daichi is pretty much done. Daichi is written by the talented Dan, who you might know from Twitter and or Blue Sky as Dan Talks Games. They're a automaton a samurai with a modular feat bank that can be changed out. They can learn feats from people and activate them. So we are on to Draga, and Draga needs a little bit of padding, just a bit, and needs a sidebar. So that is what we will work on next. And so I work on Sinclair stuff on Fridays right now. I work on Eldritch Osiris games stuff on Thursdays. On Monday, I work on commissions, or at least currently I have commissions to work on that I do on Monday, or not on Monday. I'm off on Monday. On Tuesdays, sorry. Tuesdays is my Monday for streaming. And on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I just do whatever I want, basically. From writing new creatures to mechanics, items, what have you. I have a Patreon, which all of that is for free on. You can go check it out by typing !Patreon in the chat if you like. There's no paywall. I do enjoy if anybody does sub or donate there, but it's not necessary. You have full access to everything, including images and transcripts. And timorous. Why do I feel like that's a word that I simply do not know? Timorous. Recklessly bold or daring. It is a word, so we'll tell it to learn that word. Oh, excuse me. Once after. Do you work on PF2e materials too? Not in a long time. I used to. I used to do it quite a bit. And I've done a couple of jobs working on 1E stuff in the past couple of years, but I haven't done much to touch 1E outside of that in a few years. I have a library of monsters that I made for 1E out there, as well as a few products out there from 1E. They are several years old. But let me see if I can find the monster library at least. Are you a 1E main, Yuikami? Yep, I played since 2009 to today. You've been playing longer than I have. I didn't start playing TTRPGs until 2012. I really suggest 2E. I was really hesitant at first because I was a very staunch 1E main. And I didn't get into 2E until I wanted to enter a contest for writing monsters, because I thought writing monsters is what I do best. I'll learn the system and do well. And I did well, having never played the system. I made a creature that ranked gold in that competition. And it was flawed. I had to go back and touch it up. But here in chat is the link to my 1E monster library. There's like 90 something monsters. Yeah, 90 monsters in there. You go in there and there'll be a column with a link that takes you to the specific sheet. But Yeah, I don't do much with 1E anymore. I've been converted to 2E. I find its benefits to be quite good. There are a few things I sometimes miss about 1E, but especially as a GM and a designer, I find 2E much more focused on my ability to run and design for the game. So I appreciate it quite a bit. What do you miss about 1E and 2E? I miss that, like, when designing in 1E, everything had a very everything connected numerically. In 2E, it doesn't necessarily. There is some hidden math where things are connected, but they're not inherently connected. You can break those connections very easily, which is actually good for the design. It doesn't pigeonhole you. It's something I didn't like at first because I liked the interconnection and the rules, the gearbox of design. But 2E has its own separate gearbox of design that is actually, I think, better for design in general. And it's also much easier to work with. And way less finicky and way more balanced. Like, don't get me wrong, like, if you want the min-maxer fantasy, 1E is probably better. Like, if you want to, at level 5, become a god, that's 1E. Maybe after I finish current campaign, I'll start running 2E. It's good. I suggest, like most people, I suggest playing the beginner's box. You can still kind of min-max in 2E, but it's less necessary and a little less easy to do, at least in the minning part. It's much harder to min in 2E. Easy enough to max. But like your maxing is less absurd. Oh yeah. Yeah, like 1E's big thing was like build mastery changed the game significantly. Like I ran 1E games where I had a party of like, what was it, level 8s that could fairly consistently beat like creatures significantly above their CR. And oh, give me a second. And so like the one that I saw quite a bit, Sapphire, was crit range builds. So in my last big 1E campaign, I had a player that basically had a 25% chance to crit, period, because they would confirm that crit. I never once had them fail to confirm the crit. And their minimum damage by like the end of the game that as we were playing it was like minimum damage 52. Hello, robot, be banned. And like at that point I was very comfortable with the system and I adjusted for that. Like I could make it to where that wasn't busted while still allowing the other players to shine as well. But it did require a lot. Like I guess the easiest way to do it is 1E could be very, very rewarding, but it was a bit stressful to do so at times. Whereas 2E can also be very rewarding, maybe a little less in terms of build mastery, but it's significantly lighter on not only the players, but the GM as well. And it's far more balanced. It's not perfectly balanced. There's no such thing as perfectly balanced. But especially one thing that was in 1E that that was a bit of a problem was like you could build 5 or 6 different encounters that were the same challenge rating effectively or challenge expectation and then have wildly variant difficulty. That wasn't just, you know, circumstantial. Like even in almost any game, you can throw a creature at a party that they're just not suited to deal with. Excuse me. And that will make that combat more difficult. But just in general, 1E was that, but a lot more often. And the gear, like I said, the gearbox of 2E is different to the gearbox of 1E, but it's still a good gearbox. And 99% of the time, if you build a moderate encounter, you can expect it to be of moderate difficulty. If you build a extreme encounter, you can expect to kill somebody. If you build a trivial encounter, they're going to walk through it. Like, the encounter building works really, really well in 2E, which just makes life even easier as GM. And it's also relatively easy to adjust. I think one of the biggest things that I miss from 1E out of 2E is that creatures, due to their top-down modularity in terms of the math, was that you could very easily just press a button, basically, or even just do some simple math and scale in a creature all the way from CR0 to CR20, whatever. And some virtual tabletops and other things have done that job for us in 2E, but it's a little more complicated to do that. Although a shorter range version of that with the elite and weak adjustments are quite easy to do. I have to touch up each encounter significantly to make sure my players have good times, but it takes so much time to prep. Yeah, that was a huge thing. Like, my prep time in 1E was like, and I'm very much a fly by the seat of my pants GM, and my prep time was still like 1 to 3 hours. I basically don't have to prep for 2E. Like, unless I just want to have everything set up beforehand for something, in which case it takes me like 10 minutes. Another big thing is from a design standpoint. It used to take me about a week to write a creature for 1E, spending about 20 minutes to an hour a day working on one. Like the ones I sent in that link earlier. So I'd make one a week. While I still make about one creature a week for 2E, that's just because I assign myself 1 day to make a creature, in which I do it in a little less than 2 hours usually, and they're usually a lot more in-depth. So, and better like gone over. So it's much easier to design for as well. And I think it lets me make more interesting creatures in terms of what they can do, because I'm not worried about, oh, did I do all the math right? Because that part's much easier to deal with in 2E. And you can generally expect that it will be balanced in 2E, unless you just give it very out of the ordinary abilities. Like Will-O-Wisps, I'm pretty sure you know Will-O-Wisps in 1E, they suck. They're immune to everything. Will-O-Wisps still suck in 2E. They are very similar. They are immune to almost everything. They turn invisible at will. They're a little more manageable, but yes, they still suck. But they go from being like, there's 12 of this sort of thing to like, there's a couple of those sort of things. So it's much more manageable in 2E. And Oh, one thing I really think that 1E could adopt from 2E is the rarity tags. Not only because they adjust like how much of a check you need to get to identify, but also because like they help give you like a litmus for, hey, should I throw 20 of these at somebody or like one with like the more common minions sort of thing. And like 2E's rarity system has mechanical inferences as well as lore inferences, which is nice. And they're technically subjective, some of them. So like if you do homebrew campaigns, some of the things that are uncommon and rare might not be for your game. And that's fine. You can just change them. There are some things in the game that with a little familiarity you realize are uncommon or rare, not because they're rare or uncommon in world, but because they kind of push the boundaries of normal mechanics. They might upset a certain kind of game. Like detect alignment from 1E has a version in 2E, as well as like zone of truth. And they're both uncommon because they could very much upset a type of game. Like if you're doing a murder mystery and you have zone of truth, well, guess who done it? Person in the circle, you know. So they have that uncommon tag, which basically all uncommon means in terms of character options is like you do not have automatic access to this. You have to ask your GM. It's called the Diviner Done. Yeah, that was a huge thing in 1E. I've had Zone of Truth ruin so many things. And then like you either got to go like, okay, well they've got the thing that makes them be able to lie in Zone of Truth anyway, or it protects them from it. Then she's like, but who put that on them? Who did it? Who done it? Okay, I realize I'm just talking now, but that's fine. I've got extra time to stream today. So I'm gonna be right back. Like 2 minutes, and I'll talk some more. I'm back. Oh no, it's you're absolutely fine. I just I had to step away to help my wife with something. Um, but yeah, I very much enjoyed my time with 1E. I loved it. My first TTRPG was D&D 3.5. I like to say that the thing that got me into Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs was Pokemon. Because Pokemon TCG led me to Yu-Gi-Oh, led me to Magic, or led me to D&D. Last week I was supposed to stat on an NPC, end up lore dumping 4 hours. Yeah. High five. Sorry, in 3.0, 3.5 was so much better. I borrowed some stuff from 3.0 because I liked Ninja. But I only ever really played in 3.5. And then somebody introduced me to Pathfinder. I was just like, well, this is absolutely like what I want out of a TTRPG for the longest time. And like when 2E came out, like I said, I was reticent to change. Like I heard about like the differences and I was just like, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like that. And I tried 4E and got angry. I never got to play 4E. All I ever heard about it was people memeing on it, except for one like friend of a friend who like really stood by it and said it was good. And like in hindsight, I was just like, okay, yeah, I believe you. I very much dislike 5e, and I think a lot of people who played 3.5 or Pathfinder 1e dislike 5e. And I think the reason why is how much it puts on the GM in terms of deciding whether or not you can do something. It takes a lot of stuff out of the hands of the players, basically, and puts it into the hands of the GMs, which is good for certain kinds of games. It's not my cup of tea. XX in my language is 5. Oh, no problem. Like I kind of hated it too for a while, and then like the whole everyone has their own game. Like, why are we shitting on it? Sort of started to sink in because the same arguments can be made about the games I like. So, I stopped shitting on it. It's still not for me, but I understand. I did not have, despite enjoying the people I was playing with, I did not very much enjoy the mechanics of 5e. I didn't like the gameplay experience. It's about people 5e brings into the pool of players. Yeah. I like it's very open and accessible to new people. And it is very good for people who like to wing their game. Yeah. And in that way that it's rules light for the players, it becomes very modular for the GM. It becomes very mutable. But it's still a lot to pile onto the GM. Not like better than thou mentality, but I ran into so many toxic 5e players. Yeah, I've met plenty of toxic players on both sides, trust me. We just, or at least in my experience, I feel like I tended to have more trouble with the toxic 5e players because I was on the other side. They were not on my side, so I would see them more, if that made sense. But I was definitely a toxic 1e person for a while. Level scaling spells. Oh, we have that in 2e. Heightening spells. In 1e, you've got things that scale off caster level, but like other than that, nothing, right? We do have scaling spells in PF2e. In fact, most spells scale in one way or another. And even the ones that don't, like their scaling still becomes like harder to counteract with something else. So like so proficiency was a thing that I was like about 2e at first when I was still a 1e head. Because it's just like, well, like your monsters get extraordinarily difficult really fast, but you do too. And so you know the fantasy of like having trouble with something and then wiping the floor with it a little while later in a lot of games. 2e does that extremely well. And so like you can have like a level 5 or 6 creature be this insurmountable challenge at level 1. Like you have no fucking chance. And then a few levels later, it's a challenge, and maybe they escape. And you come back a few levels later, and now they're just a minor player. You beat the crap out of them, and you're going after their boss. Like it, and if you like the more flattened scale of like 1e and stuff, where you have more of a chance against higher level things, there's a system for that called proficiency without level, and it basically doubles the level range of creatures you can access. It's really good. They've thought of a lot of things. Yeah, spell scaling was really popular. And like in reality, there was sort of it in 1e. It just wasn't automatic. You had, you know, your different cure spells, which was just spell scaling, but not automatic. They were considered separate spells. In 2e, you've got heal and harm, which are the cure and inflict light wounds spells. Yeah, and cantrip scaling too. Yeah, cantrips are great. I like cantrips. Focus spells too. Focus spells are a thing we did not have in 1e, which are essentially, think of focus spells as a rechargeable spell slot that are for specific types of spells. Yeah, like I think a big thing for me, even because I joined in around the time the Game Mastery Guide came out. Focus spells come from 4es once per encounter abilities. Yeah, but you can get it up to 3. But basically, yes. Yeah, skill points are gone. There is an alternate rule to use skill points, but now we use the proficiency system, which is you have untrained, which is you just get your ability modifier to it. You have trained, which is 2 plus your level plus your ability modifier. Expert, which is 4 plus your level plus your ability modifier. Master, which is another 2 higher, and legendary, which is another 2 higher. And I was very reticent about dropping skill points too. I much prefer this system now. Skill points is so fun though. You can still do a sort of skill point thing. There is an alt rule for it. But trust me, it works out really well. The proficiency system. You can still do skill points. Like I said, they have a variant rule for it called skill points. But it's definitely also you have fewer things to pick from. Like in 1e, you had, what was it, 20 something skills, not including like random knowledges. And you've got a little bit less. You technically have infinite because of lore skills, but your core skills have been condensed a little bit. The same way they got condensed from 3.5 to Pathfinder a little bit. Like you used to have, I think, what is it? It's swim, climb, jump, and on all the skills. Now you have athletics. There are 4 main magical knowledge skills. There's Arcana, religion, occultism, and primal. Forgot how skill is. Use rope. Use rope. Now using rope is just, if you need a skill check at all, use the appropriate one for the situation. Yeah, it's a little less granular in the skill options, but they're better in general. Oh, another thing, the 4 tradition system. In Pathfinder 1e, everything's either some form of divine or arcane. You have 4 in Pathfinder 2e. You have arcane, primal, divine, and occult magic. And there are no longer class specific spell lists. You get you get spells from one of those 4 lists. And there's more to it than that, but that was did they have that in 1e? Like, I knew there was flavors of that in 1e, 4 types of spells. I was pretty sure that it was like the other 2 came later on. Okay. Oh, that's right. They can't well, they were still yeah, they were still divine and arcane. They were just flavorful. Like, you're thinking, I think, of like the psychic abilities and the occult unlocks and stuff. Here they're actually separate things. Like, primal isn't a subgenre of divine. Yeah, occult rituals and stuff. But they're their own thing. And rituals are cool in 2e too. They're magic that anyone can do. Because it's skill-based magic. Like, resurrection is a ritual. So you don't use a spell slot. You use skills to cast resurrection. I just found out really recently they also introduced power word casting in 1e. Oh, but it eats up so much feats. Yeah, and there's the words of power system from Spheres of Power 2, which was really fun. For 1e, which didn't eat up a shit ton of feats, if I remember correctly. It was just, you didn't have spell slots, you learned words. Like, I used a lot of third-party shit in 1e. My favorite book, even to this day, is a 1e book called The Advanced Bestiary. It was just a book full of templates. I used to work for a lot of third-party publishers, but artists are so underpaid. Yeah, it's hard to find work in the area at all, and then, like, on top of that, the pay is not the greatest. Like, I would be so happy to be able to do this for money again. But right now I'm basically on volunteer status. And like, now and then I'll pick up a commission or something, but that's, that's not quite, it doesn't pay the bills, Ever submit any entries to Wayfinder? Not Wayfinder, but to Roll for Combat. what do they call it? RPG Superstar. That's actually how I got into 2e. And I'm really glad that I didn't need the money that I won really quickly, because it took like over almost a year to get it. But I did get it eventually, which was nice. But yeah, I do more work like actually just making content these days. Not that I sell a whole lot, but I make PDFs and stuff. You only get paid $35 for a fully rendered character? What the fuck? Like this? Maybe without the rock? Holy shit. With rock, goddamn. Like, holy shit. I think people these days are at least a little better about trying to pay you what you're worth. But shit, even back then, god damn, that's bad. That's really bad. Like, that's criminal. Didn't know any better. Yeah, I think that's how a lot of people get screwed early on. Like, one of my first third-party projects that I ever worked on, I ended up doing for exposure, and it did not help. And tried out private commissions and never go back. Yeah, I have not made more in private commissions than I have as a contractor, but I've also only had one contractor job. Or no, I guess I've had two contractor jobs, but only one of them did a lot, and that was Sinclair's at the time. But I do get private commissions a little bit. Can I buy a hot dog with exposure bucks? No. Sometimes you can beg for a hot dog and somebody will take pity on you. Got to do a lot of exposure to get into the industry. My suggestion is, instead of trying to get, quote, into the industry, just make your own shit. It probably won't do massively well, but countless free hours to get your name out there, and they're all connected. Yeah, I already left. Like, like, I started getting private commissions after writing my own stuff and putting it out there. And they're infrequent. And a lot of times it ends up being repeat customers, which is nice and feels a little weird at times, because it's just like, I did well enough and you want me to do more, thank you. It's just like, I didn't fuck up, okay. And I think imposter syndrome's a big thing too, where it's just like, but because you see how the sausage is made, you're afraid that if somebody else sees how the sausage is made, it's going to like devalue your work. And I've gotten to the point where I just don't. I feel it a little, because I'm like a nervous person, but I don't live by it anymore, which is part of the reason I do the streams. The streams have helped me significantly with actually producing content and keeping on work, because my ADHD and my fucking stress and shit is terrible. Yeah, appreciation from individual followers is so much more refreshing. I mean, any feedback can be hard to get. And they can directly support you too. Yeah, it's huge to have a few extra bucks. Like, I still have to do my day-to-day work. and stuff. I still have a day job that pays me crap, but it's the only thing I can get around here. So having those extra little paydays now and then is great. And like you do what you can. Like I currently have a project going on to try and help me pay off my taxes. To where I'm making a bunch of free token rings for the community. I have commissions open for token rings. I have commissions for TTRPG writing, and editing and layout and all that. I have, or like open. I have one commission currently that I'm working on. Oh no, the alt box taxes. Yeah, I had a bad couple of years, and like I said, I was considered a contractor for a while, which means that I have to pay my own taxes, and life got really hard, and I wasn't able to put money back. All the money I had put back went to feeding us and to paying bills. So I'm in the hole. Yeah, I've got. Hello? Oh, hold on. Sorry. My mother-in-law just came through the front door. So yeah. So I'm doing everything I can to try and get stable, basically. And it can be hard sometimes. So I'm hoping that one or more of the things I'm doing will catch on, and I might start building a support network. But for now, I scrape by. Three. Thank you. Where you said that certain things mean something else in your language. Where are you from? If that's not or what language do you speak? If that's not a weird question. Thailand. Oh, I think you're the first person I've ever talked to that's from Thailand. Nice to meet you. Hello from Texas. At least toward the. You used to live in Texas, Sapphire. I don't like it here. It's too hot. And the people suck. I used to live in the US for several years. Where'd you live in the US, Yui? Sold my soul for a lot of money in the oil industry. I worked construction last year, again, as a contractor. So again, having to pull out for taxes. But I haven't done any real oil field work. A few years ago, I worked for a guy that owned some oil fields, but I was like doing like mowing and like cleaning and stuff like that. I didn't actually do oil work. So I've heard it's hard as hell. That it pays well, but it beats the living shit out of you. But most of the work I've done is I worked at Walmart for 10 years. San Francisco, Kansas City, Georgia, NYC. You've been around, shit. I've only ever lived in Texas, mostly in New York. I've never been to New York. I've been to Illinois to visit my grandparents when they lived there. I've been to Minnesota for a family reunion up there. I've been to Arizona once when I was a kid. I think that's about it. Mostly, I would say hella hectic, but also so convenient. Yeah, like I wish I lived somewhere convenient. I live in the middle of nowhere. The one store in town is a little gas station, and that's where I work. I went to Arizona too, but only the past way. Yeah, I guess I've been to more states if you count the ones that my parents drove through, but like I don't count those because like McDonald's isn't a vacation destination. McDonald's and gas stations. I miss Waffle House so much. I honestly I miss Waffle House too. I haven't been to one in a while. I've never been to a KFC with a buffet. I didn't know that was a thing. They don't have those here either. We've got KFC, don't get me wrong, but I've never seen a buffet. Georgia got loads of it. That's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Our sort of Texas's local place is Whataburger. North Georgia Mountains now. Work for a healthcare company. That sounds much better. Unlimited mashed potatoes and southern sweet tea. I don't like sweet tea. I know people like look at me like something's wrong with me because I've lived my whole life in Texas, but I don't like sweet tea. Sweet tea is S tier. It is F tier. Fuck that shit. Nah, I'm not really gonna shit on it. I understand a lot of people like it. I just don't like it. It's not to my tastes. The only tea that I've ever really had that I was like, I like this is when I was growing up, like having Lipton lemon tea, like the instant shit was like good. And realistically, it's because of the lemon. I like lemon lemonade and stuff. And you can refill that anywhere you want to in Georgia. Yeah, you can do that here too in Texas. Like sweet tea is a staple. It's just like not my jam. You know, there's enough sugar in it when it's crunchy. Yeah, that's before my stepdad got started like developing diabetes. He used to drink tea like that. But the only ones I really liked were like lemon teas, half and halves, and sleepy time tea, which doesn't have any tea in it. It's an herbal tea. Fresh lemonade from local summer festivals are so good. I don't think I've ever had real fresh lemonade ever. I really like Hubert's lemonade, but it's hard to find. It's sour as hell, and I like sour. It's very acidic. Uncle used to drive to Brunswick where it's so countryside, and they got some nice festivals like that. Yeah. I've never had like real fresh lemonade. I have had like lemon water and lime water, and I like those. But I've never like gone. I'm gonna murder like 6 lemons and half a bag of sugar, and made lemonade. But I also don't really like super sweet lemonade. I prefer sour lemonade. Brunswick, where it's so countryside, got some nice festival. It's been a long time since I've been to like a festival. I used to go to like a polka festival that my parents would take me to, and they'd have like sausage and stuff. Chick-fil-A makes the best lemonade.
It's been a while since I've been to a Chick-fil-A. There's not one terribly close to me. And I can't drive anyway. So, like I don't have a license or a vehicle. So I have to walk places, and which is kind of why I'm stuck working where I am. You can only get lemonade from Auntie Anne here. Is that a brand or a place? Or your actual aunt? This side of the world is mostly lime. I like lime better than lemon. A brand. Just a little bit. Like I like them both, but I like lime a little bit better. Like I'll sit and eat a lime. I like lime. Uh, a brand, the pretzel chain. I've got such a bad memory, I can't tell if it rings a bell or not. I'll be honest. Um, uh, like I have really bad ADHD. And I'm not properly medicated because I can't afford to go to a doctor, to get anything prescribed. And my mom doesn't have like my uh medical history from when I was younger when I got diagnosed, so I'd have to get re-diagnosed. See, like I know other people who have ADHD and they get medicated and they're like it's weird being a functional person, but like so good. Yeah. Like literally big huge reason I stream. It tricks my brain into working. And sure, sometimes I'll just talk here and my actual workflow slows down significantly because I'm talking, but I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Don't apologize. um, uh, because one, it makes me start. I also do that sometimes. Sapphire medicate with excessive caffeine. The problem is here lately. It's been giving me some trouble with shakiness and falling asleep. So I've gotten to the point where I need to get off of it for a little while and let my body stop producing the counteractive shit for a bit, so that it goes back to working without me overdosing. I take caffeine pills, 200 milligram pills. Uh, so yeah, I usually have to quit for about a week, sometimes two, before I can really get back onto it. I have high blood pressure because of it. Doc was like, "You need to lay off the caffeine." I might have high blood pressure. I don't know. Um, like I said, I can't afford to go to the doctor, so I kind of put it in working condition. Yeah. Uh, like it's a pressure commitment. Like one of the big things with ADHD is like we have a tendency to wait until the last minute to do things, and that's because there's work pressure, there's deadline pressure, and we want the sort of endorphin rush of executing under a stressful situation. Ever feel like your heart is about to come out of your chest out of the blue? If so, ooh. Um, a couple of times, but not often. The first time I really fucked up and went, maybe 800 milligrams was a bad idea. Um, and like, it didn't hurt so much as just like I could feel it everywhere and I could feel myself shaking. And it wasn't good. It was like having some sort of non-psychedelic bad trip. It was not fun. Uh uh So I've been a lot more careful with my dosages since then. Because I was dumb and I was just like, what's the daily safe value? And it's just like 1,200 milligrams. I was like, okay, I'll take half that, and then forgot the fact that I also had an energy drink. A lot of that until I started exercise routine, and it helps me greatly. I know that getting up and moving around does help me sometimes. Right now it's hot as fuck. Simple exercise, stretching. I have trouble like keeping up with that. I always think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna buckle down. I'm gonna get healthier. I'm gonna exercise and stuff. It never ends up sticking. I'll be right back. Like 30 seconds. I think. Yeah. Yep. Audio working. Uh, yeah. When I was a kid, I was medicated, but none of the medicines did great things. Um, at least at least I didn't think so at the time. Twitch redeemed to force themselves to exercise. I thought about doing that. I've got a stretch one, but I thought about doing that, but then I was just like, I don't actually have my camera on, so is it cheapened by that? Because chat spends points on it and you can't procrastinate that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Like, I guess even if I don't have a camera, it might be worth doing. How about Tree Fitty? I would love Tree Fitty, Deathy. Tree Fitty would be great. Once on bike. Anyway, it's 4 a.m. I gotta wake up soon. Thank you so much for the good time. I'll definitely drop a by again soon. Thank you, Yui. Nighty night. Have a good one. And have fun and a good tiny sleep. Bye. Darn Loch Ness monster took my tree. That is one of the few episodes of South Park I've seen, so I get that reference. Captain America. I get that reference. Yuki Kami, love you. Thank you, Yuki. Or Yui. Sorry. Yui Kami. My eyes suck. Sorry. So how you been doing, Deathy? Been a minute. Charming and friendly nature makes her strangers at but for someone who would like critical or check go.
if you attempt to impression. Hello, bot. Be gone. It's not making impression or otherwise affect or disposition using these skills. Doing okay. Start a new audiobook this weekend. Neat. Which kind? Or which one? What one? What one? Axe Druid? It's just the name evokes ideas that may not befit the actual plot. Just think of a wildfire druid holding an axe, just like, I don't give a shit about plants. Yeehaw! Only you can prevent forest fires. It's good so far. That's good. Yeah. I guess speaking of axe druid, here's a druid with an axe. Is a hatchet. Excuse me. The main character has a pet rock. Oh, Rock the bird. Yeah. That is it a baby? Or is it the size of a house? Uh, Rocks are real world mythological animals, aren't they? They're like the Middle East, I think. Yeah. Popularized in Arabian fairy tales and sailor folklore. Started as an egg and currently stands 6 feet tall when near the characters. So yeah, baby. A bird large enough to carry an elephant in its claw is what a rock is described as in mythology. I always really liked rocks. They're really cool without going too overboard. They're just a big bird, and yet they're so freaking terrifying, basically. Whereas like you've got your phoenixes and your thunderbirds and stuff, which are also really cool mythological animals, but they definitely lean into magic a lot more, or more magical concepts. It's a storm version that throws lightning bolts at enemies. So a lightning rock. Don't you know that rock type is resistant to electrical type? The Pokemon man says, shaking his head. The Pokemon. uh yeah, then there's I think giant birds are a big thing in mythology. Like you've got Garuda, you've got the Rock, you've got Thunderbirds, Phoenixes. One could interpret dragons as a big old bird of sorts, or at least certain kinds of dragons, because classical dragons really don't necessarily reflect what we think of as dragons. Like the Tarrasque is a dragon, and it's a big old lion, turtle, tortoise thing, or tiger turtle or some shit. Uh, This is a one action double stride that ignores difficult terrain and movement restrictions due to water. This either needs to be two actions, uh, or have the freaking uh the thing, the one. My brain is blanking. Uh, the one where you can only use it once per turn. Traits, come here. I'm forgetting a word. Uh, flourish. That's the one. I think it really needs to be two actions though. Like this is just too much. Like she's ignoring difficult terrain and able to walk on water effectively by a reasonable interpretation of this. She on surface of water. Sorry. Right. Movement on the surface of water. She falls into at the end of her. She falls into the water immediately. Until the start of her next turn, she gains physical resistance until the start of her next turn. I will be right back. I'm back. And I had myself a drink too. All right. So it seems like they gave her one elemental ability per element. Rage of Elements is in the OGL. So we could give her a fire and a wood ability. To pad her out to the bottom here. Okay. Any number of animals. What about metal? I don't know what I would do for it right now, but I just need to fill out this section down here at the bottom. So just fire, air, water, earth, animal, as well as a few spells. Captain Planet. she is Captain Planet. Heart. Animal speaker is heart. 3 to physical damage. Okay. verdant footfalls, primal wood, Drugga does not harm foliage. Moves through unless it desires it. She desires to. This prevents her from leaving tracks in underbrush, grass, or other plant filled environments, increasing the tracker bite. Increasing the tracker to 28. Give her a passive there. Because is tracking and survival or stealth? I forget. Track. Action. Oh. Cover tracks. Is what I'm thinking of. Against your survival DC. Okay. She is always considered to be. She always. Under the effects of cover tracks in verdant environments, underbrush, and underbrush. Always considered to be using the cover tracks activity in verdant environments. There we go. And now one for metal. Oh, also, these are out of order. Zephyr line. Nature's blades. Primal. Metal. There's thunder. Whenever Draga deals damage with a metal weapon, it comes resistances and triggers weaknesses as if it were all types of metal. This does not grant her weapons the additional properties of these metals. There we go. Now she's got a little bit of every element, and she fills out her page. And we just have to do a sidebar now. Precious metal. Elemental variety. Order. Draga. And I may not. Nature. Raise her. What? Mm-hmm. A lot from their teaching. druids or their magic. She lowers the she treats the to lower a lot from teaching and it's on druids additions with their magic. Okay. It seems like a nice little thing to do. She can sort of have a soft druid lore baked into her nature check. Nico's one where we don't need to make more tech. We need to make less. Like technically, it all fits in here, but not with his image. His art doesn't fit. Okay, let's get rid of the big needs culling. Let's move him in here. Get him suited. Hmm.
Mm. Okay, let's find something to cut. And the easiest thing to do is going to be to cull 1 or 2 lines here and pick one of these to not have. Let's just take the last one off for the moment. See what we can get done here. Seems kind of dinky compared to the rest of the artwork. So I think we just give him the first one and delete those. It says it's one of his proudest creations, so all right. So we just need to shave a little bit here. There we go. Not ideal to have to cut things out, but sometimes you gotta. I think there's one other place where we've got like a culling space, but not nearly as big as this one. Next blade. Yeah, we gotta do a little bit here. Yeah, we gotta do a decent amount here, but not in so many multiple places. Like I think if it was roughly equitable to that much, it would. Or no, yeah, we do have to pull it back a bit. Okay, social guy probably needs to be thinned down. Neutral, good. Sitting through. Mark of the Raven. Expect. Mark on. Uses Mark of the Raven again. Getting closer. Almost getting it to fit in the box. Stroke. On its own. Explains social identity. None should be utilized with a degree of secrecy. Of if the party figures it out quickly. Don't do. Quickly. Right here. Oh, divert attention. Too much. Still too thick. If I complete. Oh, how much more is there? Holy crap.
whole thing basically. So anti-archetype. See 40 to see these guys. We might be able to get away with the 2 overlines. Let's do a tiny bit of cheaty face here and see if we can get a little bit of extra space. Not there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's Elvin. If we can squeeze these 2 extra lines out from up here somewhere, that would work.